about at the end of last week's meeting, this should all work. So let me just call the meeting to order. I'm not going to do roll because we know who's here. Tom's here.
I'm here.
Amy's here. Tom's here. So that's a quorum. So we'll convene the meeting. I guess the first order of business is I would like, if people had an opportunity, to approve the minutes that were circulated, I believe, and by you from our meeting on the 28th of February.
Yeah, I looked at them and I'll move to approve, Tom.
And Amy, you're good? All right, so the 228 minutes are good.
So with two lawyers here reviewing the minutes, I feel very comfortable.
Okay, so a couple of things on the agenda. What we wanted to do is just sort of as a matter of good order is to make certain we go into the Board of Finance meeting with two issues that face our RPAC committee here, kind of sorted out. One would be the rate, and the other would be whether we should consider adopting the same smoothing mechanism for the actuaries to apply for purpose of evaluation of the OPEB. So last year we only did it with respect to the pensions. And so I would say with respect to the first issue, if you can somehow navigate yourself to the materials from the 228 meeting, you might recall the Hooker and Holcomb presentation, not the draft, but the actual final one. And on that one, if you were to navigate to page, it's like 12 to page 15 or slide 12 to slide 15, you can see they have done all the easy math for us so that they have calculated the impact on the ADEC for the 23-24 year for keeping the rate the same at 6 3/4, which Ian is the 187, 186 and change. It's 187, right?
Yeah.
If we were, by Hooker's estimates, if we were to chip 1/8 of a point off of that and go down to 6.625, that contribution goes up by 20-30, that's 208.
21,000.
Yeah, 21,000, right? And so honestly, I have to say, you might remember, Colin, from years in the past, all of your lengthy tenure here, we had been searching for good reason to perhaps moderate this rate. And this year we have the benefit of a lot of non-financial factors going in our favor, all the actuarial factors. You have the mortality rates and all these things that they took us through last week to kind of show us that, okay, this is an opportunity for us to perhaps with minimal effect to reduce that rate, because we had always thought while we were sort of comfortably within the reasonable zone, we were between the 25th and 75th percentile of what Brian Binkley had told us would be the rate, the long-term rate, the 30-year rate that they were looking at. We weren't really in the fat part of that curve, right? You might recall if you turn to slide 15 of that presentation, you get some benchmarking from our neighboring communities. And you can kind of see, you do have to kind of read this with a column that's not there, which is how funded or not are they, right? Some of these plans in order to make an apples to apples, but it kind of tells us that 675, for those communities that are fully funded, they're kind of a little bit more moderated. They're in the low to mid 6s. We're in the high 6s. And so chipping 1/8 is a good directional move. If we're fortunate enough to have some other good factors contribute to circumstances next year, we can consider whether or not there'd be another move. But I would be in favor of chipping 1/8 off of this for the coming year. I don't know, either of you want to jump in with your thoughts.
Yeah, Tom, I've been thinking about it. I think you summarized it very, very well. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer on these things, but I do think that and I don't have it in front of me right now, I was trying to find it, but you're right, that I think we were a little more aggressive than some of the peer communities near us. And I remember seeing that last year and thinking that that maybe we don't need to be quite as aggressive. I understand it does cost us a little bit more money in having to make contributions, and that's the bottom line. But I think that taking it down a notch makes me feel like we're doing the prudent thing by getting more in the middle of the curve.
Yeah, I think so. And Amy, you concur?
I am fundamentally conservative on things like this.
Yeah,
I am. We have, our obligation is to have it funded, keep it funded.
yeah,
The world's a little choppy right now, so.
yeah, I agree.
So I think it's a perfect time, given
Yeah,
all the things that went in our favor in terms of funding on this.
yeah, and well, look, we are here representatives of the town, and we do need to think about the effect that it has on our budget. It is difficult to overstate the importance of this fund to the participants and beneficiaries of the fund. And I think at the end of the day, like I said last week, my guiding North Star here is do no harm. So, there've been a lot of good fiscal discipline year in and year out of making the contributions, doing the right thing for this plan that has put us in the enviable position of being, overfunded. And so we should do what we can to protect it. But in any event, I'd be in favor of chipping an eighth off and going to 6.5. So James, probably pretty apparent where we're going with this. But if you had a thought on what was sensible in light of Hooker and Holcomb walking us through all of these actuarial conditions that seem to have really kind of gone in our favor.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the second by it.
Yeah.
And buy down is 221 or.
Yeah, it was 21,000. Yeah, so I think, so instead of 187, we're just a touch under 210. So I think that makes some sense. So then the next issue for us is last year we went through some discussion, as Colin will remember, in whether or not to adopt the smoothing mechanic that Hooker was explaining to us last year, and which they walked us through the effect it had this year on the pension. In last year's discussion, we considered whether to what extent we should adopt it, and we decided, because we were kind of doing this at the last minute, and Neil was a little reticent about, well, let's just see how it goes. So we did not adopt the smoothing mechanism for purposes of the OPEB. But I have to say, last year I was pretty convinced that I thought it was a good idea. Certainly it's less common in terms of a benchmarking practice versus what our neighboring communities do, but it is still done. It wouldn't put us in the oddball lunatic fringe by any means. People do it and it's accepted. Just a lot of different towns, right? Their OPEB is nowhere near as well funded as the regular pensions, and certainly nowhere near as generously funded as ours is. And so I personally, having seen the smoothing mechanism in effect for our pension this year, I'm actually even more convinced that it's the right thing to do for OPEB. But I would open up the floor for discussion and comments about whether or not folks would want to adopt it for the coming year for the OPEB as well.
Tom, I was just going to agree with you that I don't think there was a conscious decision to not do it for OPEB. It was really just that it was new, and I think it was sort of, let's see how this works out. But I don't think there's any objective reason why it should apply to one and not to the other. I think it, if it's the right choice for the pensions, it should also be for OPEB.
Yeah, and I have to say, again, because both the pension and the OPEB, certainly more so the pension, but even the OPEB relative to other communities, because it is so generously funded, I don't think I have any hesitancy in perhaps attenuating the effects of a really good year by the smoothing mechanism, if it means smoothing the bad effects of a poor year. And I think that's just wise and prudent given where we are in the world. And so on. That's really what's kind of put me with my position is, but I'm open to have further discussion with people that you can view.
I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Basically, you shouldn't take all the hits on it. Nobody picks the market.
Yeah.
right? So you can't take all the upside in one market and then get crushed on the downside. It's way more appropriate since it's not a one-off funding.
Yeah.
It's a funding till we get it full and then we keep it full.
Yeah.
So it makes sense we're not pretending we're market timers.
Correct.
So our contributions should reflect a average over 5 years.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna officially, so for the record, take a vote of to change the rate with respect to both the pension and OPEB from 6.75 to 6.625, reduce it by 1/8 of a point. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Nope. Okay, it's unanimous. What's that?
You made the motion? Oh,
I asked for a motion, well, I asked for a vote. So I didn't actually, but you.
yeah, I
can
need
say-
a motion. I'll make a motion. Thank you.
James will second, okay,
And unanimous vote.
then unanimous vote, okay. You got that, and then the same, can I get a motion to adopt the smoothing mechanics for OPEB in the same manner that we did with respect to the pension?
I'll move for that, Tom.
Let's move for that, James is second, all in favor? It's unanimous. Perfect. You guys are the best, okay, so just so you know, there was some talk about discussion on the investment policy, we're gonna leave that for another meeting. It'll be before the end of the fiscal year, but it's a special meeting, so we can't really talk about it now. Or at least not take any action with respect to it, and it's really pretty, it's ministerial, it's not particularly substantive point. So, in any event, all right, with all that, I'm gonna give you all 15 minutes back, and call the three of us, and then we're all gonna march over to the other room and give
Okay.
some comfort that we're there with plenty of time to spare. Thanks again for your time.
Talk to you in 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
The first thing that is, I understand, put in there, then I look back and